with me. My name is Miss Lizzie. I don't ever smoke the dizzy, but we can always share some ditties. It's just a cup in time. This song doesn't have to rhyme. Life's all of us, not every moment we can be feeling fine. I wanna share a moment, just a second if you will, maybe even a cup of thrill. We could share this performance. It's tea time, come sit with me.
Well, welcome, guys. That's right. Miss Liz is back in the house. And today I have Lynda Williams in the house. And we're going to be speaking about her book and all of that good stuff. We're going to get real raw and truthful today. So we're going to spill a strong cup of tea. So for anybody who hasn't subscribed to Miss Liz's YouTube channel or any of my platforms, check those out. It's Miss Liz's Teatimes. Check out the website, www.misslizsteatime.com or Miss Liz's .com. We just changed the letter from the letter A to the letter E. It's still T in German. So that I got my Oma coming with me all the time with these cups of tea. But we're not serving beverages. We're serving real life stories and authors and community events and services and programs and all that incredible stuff on Tea Time. So you never know what's coming for Tea Time. So, but before we get started, we're going to do the good old disclaimer, and then we're going to do a little intro on Lynda Williams, and then we're going to spill some tea today with you all. So, Miss Liz's Tea Time is a global platform dedicated to sharing real life stories, diverse perspectives, and meaningful conversations that inspire awareness, healing, and connection. I'm Miss Liz is going live using StreamYard. Before leaving a comment, please, during the live broadcast, please grant StreamYard permission to display your name at StreamYard.com. Please be advised that all the content brought forward during any Tea Time show is presented in good faith and health. However, discussions may include opinions, beliefs, and perspectives that do not necessarily represent the views of Miss Liz or the Tea Time platform. Information shared by guests is based on their own experience and perceived to be accurate at the giving time of airing. All guest viewers and participants are responsible for using their own judgment when considering any action or decision that may relate to the discussions. Some episodes may cover sensitive topics, including but not limited to trauma, abuse, grief, mental health, and other emotional triggering subjects. Listeners and viewers' discretion is strongly advised. Tea Time with Miss Liz is an open discussion forum designed to offer insight, inspire awareness, and create connection. It is not a substitute for professional, medical, legal, or therapeutical advice. If you require professional support, please seek assistance from qualified professionals or trusted resources in your area. If you have questions regarding this disclaimer or the content of the discussions, you are welcome to contact me at my email at bookingmissliz@gmail.com or visit my link tree at Miss Liz's Tea Time. By choosing to participate in, comment on, or view these live shows, you acknowledge and accept this disclaimer. Your participation is entirely voluntarily. Miss Liz welcomes you to join the conversation with an open heart, and if at any time you feel this platform is not right for you, I respect those wishes and decision and welcome you back whenever you are ready. Tea Time with Miss Liz, serving truth and awareness, one cup of tea at a time. Again, this platform is to bring awareness and to have good open conversations with all of my guests. Now, today I want to introduce Lynda Williams, a voice of grit, grace, and unshakable truth. This afternoon, I welcome a woman whose life story is as raw as it is inspiring. Lynda Williams has walked through the fire, faced the storms, and emerged with a voice that speaks to the resilience of the human spirit. Her journey is not one dressed in perfection, but one marked by courage. The courage to stand in her truth, to share the beauty and the hell of it, and to transform pain into purpose. An author, advocate, and unapologetic truth teller, Lynda uses her lived experience to ignite conversations many shy away from. She has become a guiding light for those navigating their own trials, proving that it's possible to carry both grit and grace in the same breath. Through her writing, speaking, and advocacy, she challenges, uplifts, and invites others to see that even in life's hardest chapters, there is power, growth, and a story worth telling. It is my honor to bring to the table for Tea Time with Miss Liz, Lynda Williams. So let me get her in here and let's put some tea together. Welcome,
Hello.
Linda.
Thank you. How are you doing?
I am good. And yourself?
Very well, thank you.
So, Linda, what did I miss out on that intro? Let's share a little bit with the guests, the viewers that are out there, a little bit more about yourself.
Okay, well, I became a mental health advocate because I've lived with bipolar disorder since I was a teenager. So, over 20 years experience being mentally ill. And that really informed the short stories I wanted to write. I survived not one, but two abusive relationships in my 20s. And I guess it just made me want to push back on the expectations we place on women. So many of the stories were inspired by the idea of women saying, no, to heck with that. I'm not going to make myself small to accommodate you.
I like that. And you know what I like about your intro and when I got sent, when Mickey sent you, was the truth speaker. Because I'm big on truth speaking, right? We don't speak the truth because people are scared to speak it, scared of the judgment, scared of the shame. Uh, so, do you want to share a little bit about truth speaking, and that, and how you feel about it?
You know, I came to it in a bit of a backwards way. So the first time I was hospitalized for illness, I was 15 years old. Grew up in a very small town, and it was over the summer. I came back to school in the fall, and a classmate sat down next to me and said, "So I heard you were in the hospital over the summer." And at that moment, I had to decide how I wanted to manage this. If I wanted to tell a lie, if I wanted to keep it a secret and let people whisper about me, or if I was going to do some PR and get ahead of the story. And I chose the latter. And that meant that from a very young age, I was living openly with a mental illness.
I, and that's one thing that I speak about as well, Linda, is the openness of mental illness, right? Don't let it define us, but get the knowledge out there, get people to understand that yes, we live with this, but that's not who we are, right?
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. I wanted to humanize it.
So tell us a little bit about your books.
Okay, so it was 15 years in the making. The oldest story actually goes back to 2008. And I came to short stories in also a roundabout way. I started out writing poetry and nonfiction. And then I read this lovely book by Pam Houston called Cowboys Are My Weakness. And I decided that, you know what, maybe short stories would be my thing. So I worked very hard at getting published from about 2008 to 2012, and I didn't have much success. So I actually shelved fiction writing for several years in my 30s, and then the pandemic happened. And I saw people posting on social media how they'd taken the time to write books and even how some of these books were getting published. And it made me jealous in the best way possible. I decided, yes, you know what? I'm going to do this too. I've wanted to do this for so long. So I signed up for the mentorship program at Humber Polytechnic. And that's where this book was born.
So, Linda, before you were diagnosed with bipolar, did writing save you from understanding some of the, uh, the effects of the bipolar, like the ups, the downs, the mood swings? Uh, did you get into writing before you were diagnosed or after you were diagnosed?
Before. And I think one of the most important signs for me that my mental health was out of control was that I got to a point where I couldn't write anymore. And as a teenager, writing was my only hobby, reading and writing. That's what I did. And when I got to a point where I couldn't focus long enough to write a paragraph, I knew that I needed to get help.
So, Linda, for the viewers that don't know what bipolar is, could you share a little bit about it?
Sure. So it's a mood disorder, and there are two types. There's type 1 bipolar and type 2. I'm type 2. Type 1 features manic and depressive episodes, and type 2 features hypomanic and depressive episodes. So the difference between manic and hypomanic, manic episodes can be accompanied by psychosis. You might hear voices, have illusions of grandeur, whereas hypomanic episodes are a lighter version. You might have less need for sleep, become fidgety, have more energy, be taking on multiple projects at once. You might be talking faster. You might come across as more witty or charming than your typical self. So the problem with hypomanic episodes is we don't go to our doctor because we're feeling better than usual. So that means that they often don't go flagged, and we don't realize that something's off until we find ourselves in the middle of a very deep depression.
Wow. You know, I didn't know the difference between the 1 and the 2. So thanks for sharing that. I do have friends that have bipolar 1 and bipolar 2, and I didn't know the difference. So thanks for sharing that.
You're welcome.
So I want to get into the book because the book is called The Beauty and the Hell of It. I want to get into the colors because I'm big on colors. And I do see the blue, and your favorite color is blue. So tell us a little bit on how the book came together, how the cover came together, all that good stuff.
Okay, so maybe I'll start with the cover since we're on to the colors. Blue is my favorite color, as you can see.
And that's why I'm wearing blue.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So I'm with a small publisher, a small Canadian publisher, and they actually give quite a bit of freedom in terms of how much say you get in the cover. So I was paired with a graphic designer, and he was based in Toronto. I'm based in Calgary. We had maybe an hour-long conversation about what my vision was for it, what he had in mind for it, and from that discussion, this image was born because so many of the stories involve relationships between men and women. But often they aren't healthy relationships, or they're not particularly functional. So he had this wonderful idea to place them back to back. And then he had the idea to transpose the title over this image. And my request just was bold colors, like go big. I want eye catching.
Go big or
right?
stay home, right?
Yeah, exactly, right? And then he came back to me with this beautiful image that I couldn't have imagined for myself.
And I see like the back to back. So does that represent the bipolar as well, or does that represent the short stories inside the book, or?
Very much the short stories inside the book. I hadn't considered the bipolar, the aspect of that, but that's good. Yeah, I like where you're going. It's very much
Yeah, because when I look at the cover, like it's two people side by side, right? But it could be also one person as well, being divided into, the bipolar and the non-bipolar. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah, that's what I get from the cover. So for anybody else who sees the cover and that as well, I just like the colors. They represent it. I like the bold colors because it stands out, right? And for me, because I'm OCD, I have really bad OCD. Everything has to be aligned. Everything has to match, right? It's the words on top are like, could you move them over to the side?
Yeah. And that's one of the challenges of a long title, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So working with a Canadian publisher and stuff like that, how does that feel for you?
It's exciting to be publishing this side of the border because I did submit the manuscript in the States as well as to Canadian small publishers. So I was just really excited that someone picked it up here because it's Canadian stories. It's not super regional or anything. I wanted to keep a universal aspect so that people could relate no matter where they were reading. But I also put in some Easter eggs for people who are local to Calgary or maybe know the Eastern townships where I grew up, that sort of thing, right?
Oh, I like it. She's got Easter eggs and I got rabbit holes. You just never know where you're going to go with tea time. And I like that you left little Easter eggs because it really makes people in that area, right? And sometimes you're in an area for so long and you don't even know about these little precious Easter eggs around, right? So it gives you a reason to go out and check, like, where is this? Like,
Yeah.
So do you want to share a little bit about the stories that are inside? Just no, we're not giving the book away, but maybe just little tidbits.
Absolutely. So grief, loss, trauma, mental illness are the overarching themes. If I look at the table of contents, we have stories that deal with abortion. We have a couple who are reunited at a christening for a friend's daughter, and they have to kind of relive the sad end of their relationship and that. We have another pair who are brother and sister-in-law formerly, and they're taking a road trip to scatter the ashes of this woman's ex-husband, who is an ex-military man. So that's another challenging story. And before you get too down about all of this, please know that I use a lot of dark humor. So it's not all Debbie Downer. There's levity there too. There's another interesting story about a woman who can't stop dreaming about a former classmate.
Oh.
Yeah, she's just having these dreams, and then she finds out that he's actually in a coma, and she has this sort of secret family connection to him, and the story explores that and what becomes of the connection and these dreams. We have Blind Date, which is actually based on a hashtag tweet from Jimmy Fallon. He used to do those. I think the hashtag was Worst Blind Date. And this gentleman wrote in that he had a blind date with a woman who sat down, ate her meal in utter silence, got up and left. And then
I heard about that one.
Yes, another woman comes along and she is actually the blind date. And I was like, how does this happen, right? So
one lady got a free meal.
Exactly. So I was like, who does this, right? I want to write about a woman who does that kind of thing. So
that's gutsy right there.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, that's a sample of some of the stories, right?
Being a survivor of domestic violence and domestic abuse, dark humor has saved me a lot as well. So I get what you mean when you say dark humor, right? Is, sometimes it gets so heavy that you just got to throw that humor in to keep going, right? And some of these topics are heavy, but you got to bring the brighter side to it, right? Because there's always a positive with the negative, right?
Absolutely. And that's a little bit where the title comes from, that the beauty and the hell of things go together. It's from a line in one of the stories, but it really is overarching in all the stories that those elements can be bound together.
Right. Well, Lynda, we got some questions that came in, and I want to get those questions out too. So the first one, a hell of it, is a full phrase. What does it mean to you personally, and how has it shaped your writing?
I just didn't catch the first part of the question.
Oh, I think there was a glitch, eh? I see a little wormhole here. So the beauty and the hell of it is a powerful phrase. What does it mean to you personally, and how has it shaped your writing?
Okay, so the beauty and the hell of it, I'll share the line it comes from. It's about marriage. And this, the one story that's written from the perspective of a man, he has a moment where he realizes that you don't just choose your partner the once when you say your vows. You have to choose them over and over again every day. And he says that's the beauty and the hell of marriage. Now, for me, the meaning of the beauty and the hell is that the worst and the best of things often go together. You can't have one without the other. So get used to it And in terms of how it shaped my writing, I think of crappy first drafts. If you want that beautiful gem at the end of everything, you have to be willing to write that crappy first draft.
You just brought up a good topic, right? Those rough drafts, right? We don't just put words on paper and put it in and publish. It's those drafts, and they get edited and edited and edited. And sometimes the way we write those crappy drafts are not the way the book comes out at all.
Absolutely. I think feedback from trusted peers is so important. Often I get to a point with a story where I'm working with it. I've taken it as far as I can go. I've reached sort of a ceiling. And then I show it to another writer friend, and they're like, I wondered about this, or I struggled with that. And it opens up possibilities that I didn't see for my own work.
Absolutely. And we need that feedback. Because if we
Yeah.
don't get the feedback, then we just put a book out and we're like, oh, well, everybody's going to like it.
Yeah.
And then we get a bad review and we're like, oh, no, they don't.
Yeah.
The next question that came in for you was, your stories often balance grits and grace. How do you decide how much raw truth to reveal in your work?
Vulnerability is actually a bit of a challenge for me. The dark humor comes more easily. So often what happens is in earlier drafts, I will have my characters being quite sarcastic or snarky, and then I go through and I have to dial it back. I have to push them to be more vulnerable. And I think that's something I struggle with myself. It's easier to use humor as an armor, right? And being vulnerable is something that I layer in as I edit.
So, Lynda, when you're writing, because of your bipolar, does it sometimes take you off character?
Now, what do you mean by off character?
Like, does it create an episode? Does it, like the
A
split?
mood shift. Yeah. No, I can't say that it's ever affected me that way. More often than not, writing is cathartic for me. It helps me work through stuff, and it's satisfying to lose myself in something, because writing is one of those rare things I find where I can just forget about time when I'm doing it. So in that way, I find it very helpful and part of my treatment almost.
So it's almost like a time travel, right?
Yeah.
I like it. See, it's the T. It's the past, the present, and the future. I tell you guys, everybody, we all are time travelers. The next question I have for you, Lynda, is, in your experience, what role does fiction play in helping people process real life struggles?
Okay. For me, I think it's everything, because if I find something I can't write about, I search for wherever I can read about it. Being able to experience something from the perspective of someone else can put some distance between me and something I'm struggling with. So to read somebody else's account of how they work through, or even if it's a fictional character's account, right, of how they work through an abusive relationship, can give me something that's healing. And I do think fiction often gets closer to the truth than nonfiction, than reality. I don't know what it is about it. It's one of those things I try not to analyze. I consider it the magic of fiction.
Yeah, writing is a real lifesaver, especially for people that go through a lot of trauma and mental illness and stuff like that. It's a way of expression. You mentioned earlier about poetry. Let's talk about poetry a little bit. Like, what kind of poetry do you enjoy writing and reading?
Okay, so I started out with poetry pretty young, and I really left it behind in my 20s. But my favorite poet when I was young was Emily Dickinson.
Oh.
And I loved her work, but I also loved the idea of her being this reclusive woman who actually only published 8 poems in her lifetime and then blew up and became famous, right? That just was so fascinating to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you're writing poetry, because there's different types of poetry,
Mhm.
people say, well, I'm a poet, but there's so many different categories and genres of poetry, as just like writing, right? Different stories and genres as well. So what genre do you write in when you're writing poetry?
I wrote free verse. And I kind of wish I had played more with form, because one of the beautiful things about poetry is the different forms. If you're thinking about sonnets or haiku, they actually have quite a defined set of rules. And working within a form like that, actually, I think it really makes you a better writer. It's a challenge, and it's one of the reasons I shied away from it. I just thought, oh, I have to rhyme. I have to rhyme.
This is a lot of people told me, Miss Liz, your poetry doesn't even rhyme. And I'm like, you know what? Tic tac, give a dog a bone. I don't do that kind of poetry.
Exactly. It does not have to, right?
I'm not a nursery rhyme writer. There's no rhyme in it. It's just like the beginning of the intro that my son wrote the intro for Tea Time, and he said, like, this song doesn't need to rhyme, right? You know, uh, but there's so many people they only know of one type of poetry. So when you write off that side of poetry that they're aware of, they think it's not poetry.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's like, where did they go with this? How did they do this? That's not poem. That's writing. That's an essay. That's a thesis. That's thing.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that we're talking about the different styles of poetry as well. For anybody that does write poetry, I'd love to hear your comments on that as well, and let me know what kind of poetry actually resonates with all of you guys out there. Um, Lynda, I'm really enjoying this conversation. Like, you're
Me
you're
too.
you're the type of person that I could sit and talk with all day. Like,
Same.
the next question we have here is: you've written across genres from science fiction to literacy, short stories. How does your creative process shift between worlds?
Okay, so I think we might have overlapped a little with the other Lynda Williams there, because I haven't written science fiction.
Oh,
Um,
okay. See, that's
but
what I mean. We talked about this before we went live. There is another Lynda Williams out there who has the same exact name, guys. So maybe that question was a little bit for the other Lynda Williams.
Yeah, but I can speak to it a bit in terms of writing nonfiction. And I started on poetry and then moved into short stories. And I'm very much a person, when I'm doing one type of writing, I tend to immerse myself in that. Like when I was writing this book, all I was reading was short stories. And that's all the only kind of writing I was doing. When I took a break from writing fiction, I actually kept one sort of hand in the pie, you would say, by writing blogs. So I still had a narrative voice, and it was just me being myself, mental health advocacy, chronic illness advocacy. And it gave me an outlet, because I need to write.
You just mentioned blogs. Let's talk about
Mm.
blogs, because a lot of people don't even know what a blog is. So
Yeah.
let's share a little bit about blogs so the viewers out there can know what that is as
Yeah.
well.
So it's a short web article, right? Blogs do read differently from long form fiction. They're often people access them on their phones, so they tend to be broken up with more shorter paragraphs, more subheads, often information delivered through bullets and numbers, and it's just easily digestible information that you can access on the web. So my experience blogging was actually for BP Hope, which is bipolarhope.com. They also have a magazine by the
Oh,
same name, Hope and Harmony for Bipolar, BP Hope.
and they have a magazine, you said?
Yes, they do.
I'm going to have to look them up.
Yeah.
I'm a nerd. I like to read and I like to learn more stuff. Like, I'm learning a lot through this conversation as well. And that's what we need to do. We need to have these open conversations and ask those questions and get that information out there. So again, thanks for that. Um, you talked about being into bad relationships. If you want to share a little bit about that, if not, it's fine. But do you want to share a little bit on how you overcame those?
Sure. And I'll share a little how I stumbled in to both of them. There's an interesting pattern. I moved to Calgary when I was 19, and I came alone. I had one friend from high school who was living out here at the time. She said, "Come visit. If you like it, stay." So I did. But that left me quite isolated in terms of a support network, right? So I was an easy mark. I was vulnerable at the time. And this person recognized that and they took advantage of it. And I can say I was fortunate that it was a brief relationship, but it didn't end well. Getting out of it was hard just because it led to some stalking. And that can be a challenging thing to deal with too, because the police aren't really interested in doing a lot unless you have a restraining order. And that's not the easiest thing to come by if there hasn't already been an assault. So getting out of that was very much a question of finding new support. But my approach to leaving that was just, I want to forget about this. I want to pretend it never happened and just get on with my life. So I didn't do much in terms of seeking therapy or professional help, which looking back wasn't the wisest decision because that sort of thing it's not something you can just leave behind.
Yeah.
So then later on in my 20s, I moved from Calgary to Edmonton for school. And I found myself in the same situation where I didn't really have a ready support network. And someone recognized that. They noticed I was an easy mark. And that relationship lasted much longer because I was at an age where I thought, you're supposed to be settling down. I was invested in staying in. I thought I was supposed to make it work or something terrible like that. Whereas, when I was 19, I was just in a relationship to be in a relationship. So the second time around, the relationship did come to a head with an assault. And I decided that time to press charges. Not that much comes from charges in a domestic dispute, but what I was thinking about at that moment was, how do I want to look back on this? And I knew because of how I had handled it when I was so much younger, that I wanted to take it head on. I was going to face this. I was going to face this person in court. I was going to do all of the things. I was going to get therapy. And it was a different experience. I would say I was probably dealing with post-traumatic stress for about a period of 2 years, but I got through it and I came out on the other side feeling like I knew myself better and what I wanted from a relationship.
And it's not something you just get over, and it takes years. It's a lifetime journey to get over, especially when you're betrayed in that way, right? And then the trust issues are there. But like you mentioned, Lynda, it's almost like they smell it, right? They smell that red flag. Oh my God, she has nobody around. Let's get her. It's like bloodhounds. Like they just seek you out and find you and so in this honeymoon stage, right? I'm sure you went through the honeymoon stage, right? I'll never do it again. I was a little upset. I had too much to drink or I'm tired. There's always those excuses. But you mentioned restraining orders. Restraining orders are not easy to get. I had to get one as well. And they don't always protect you.
No, it's a piece of paper.
Right? And the people that are doing wrong know this, I'm glad that you got out of those relationships and I'm glad that you're able to speak about them. We need more voices out there like yourself, Lynda, sharing these stories and saying, you know what, I pressed the charges. I went to the courts, and it's not an easy journey, especially for women who go through this, because we're re-traumatized through the court systems and stuff like that as well, right?
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to get into the next question that we have for you. So the question came in is, how has your background in education and technology influenced your storytelling voice?
Oh, I think we've hit the overlap again. I do not
Oh,
have a background in technology. Um,
when Lynda Williams, the other Lynda Williams, comes on in the future, she is coming on. We're going to have some of these questions come back, and she'll be like, I didn't do this.
yeah. But I can speak to my background in peer support. So I talked about how at the beginning of the pandemic is when I decided I wanted to write this book. And at that time, I was working in peer support. So mental health was my life. And the whole point of peer support is to help people learn to thrive as they live with mental illness, not just to survive, because often I think having a diagnosis it can lead to us lowering our standards for what we believe we'll be able to achieve with our lives, right? Sometimes other people will see us as less capable of achieving. And it's easy to fall into that trap of believing that, right? If other people view us that way. So peer support is all about overcoming that, achieving our potential. And I got to this moment where I thought, I'm encouraging all these people to live their best life, to thrive, but I'm not fulfilling my potential here. I know I have this writer in me. So I'm just so grateful for the time I spent in peer support that it led me to that place with writing.
The peer support. Did you find peer support along your journey of writing as you wrote more?
Um, I can't say that I've accessed it since I left the field of
Okay.
working more. But I definitely have writing peers that I rely on. And there's overlap there between the people I talk writing with and mental health. Sometimes our relationship is about both.
So let's talk about a little bit about the mental health advocacy. Do you speak in schools, universities, stuff like that, or do you speak in the public for events?
I don't speak at events. I very much use blogging as the platform for that.
Okay.
So it's all lived experience blogs. It's the stuff you don't get from professionals, right? Because you can be a professional and have so much expertise and experience and educational background. And that is incredibly valuable. It teaches you how to treat people with mental illness, but it's not the same as hearing from someone who has lived it, right? So for me, talking about things that are sometimes embarrassing, uncomfortable, that's what the blogs are all about.
And I say this all the time too, no disrespect to the professionals out there, but when we live the experience, we can speak the experience, right?
Yes.
It comes from the heart. It doesn't come from a book. We actually have lived through those moments, and we can actually share the fear, real fear, not just the fear from words in a book. So again, advocacy, we don't speak about that enough in today's world either. We talk about the professions, we talk about the doctors and lawyers and justice systems, but we don't talk about the actual survivor voices.
Yeah. And I think that's actually where the hope comes from hearing from people who have come out on the other side. And not that they're unscathed, but that they've put the pieces back together and they're stronger than ever.
I like that. Put the pieces back, right? We all got to break in order to put the pieces back, but the pieces are never the same, right?
No.
And it's a good thing. Like a lot of people, I use the word broken a lot for myself to express myself a lot, Lynda. And a lot of people are like, Miss Liz, don't use that word broken. But broken is beautiful.
It's not a bad word.
We all got to break. We all got to fall. We all got to get back up. There's nothing, why are we fearing that word broken?
Yeah, no, it's like being afraid of failure. Failure is how you know you're trying. Being broken is a beautiful part of life. It means that you're living to its fullest.
Well, it goes right back to your book, right? The beauty and the hell of it, right?
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
beauty in the broken and there's hell in the broken,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
It always goes right back to the book. Miss Liz always finds a way to switch it back to the book. Uh,
Nice.
you know, and I like the title of the book because life is beauty and hell. You know, there are ups and there are downs. There is balance in life. There is pros and cons. There are good and bad. You know, it's how do we come from it? You've taken your pain and you turned it into a purpose. You've written books. You're speaking about it. You're sharing about it. You know, so that's where change comes, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So, uh, many writers fear tackling dark or painful topics. What advice do you have for those afraid of going there?
Oh, you know, it can take time. Give yourself time, because after the second abusive relationship I was in, I did lose my voice as a writer. And it took about 10 months for me to be able to write a story, which was something that I could bang out very quickly before that period of time. But I didn't give up. Every weekend, I would take myself to a coffee shop or the Zeller's Diner back in the day. um,
They need to bring that back.
oh, yes,
They had the best French fries. I don't know about anybody else, but they had the best French fries.
they really did. And so I would try to write. And what would happen is I used the free writing technique where, you just start with anywhere, but when you get stuck, you keep writing the same word over and over. And instead of getting unstuck by doing that, I would just stop. And that would be my weekend every weekend. And then finally, I came across a story that was written in the second person. And that gave me something to experiment with this idea I had, because I was trying to write about what happened to me that had to come out before I could move on. And I was able to write a piece that's actually in the collection. It's titled Miles to Inches. And that was my second person approach to what happened to me. So when I say give yourself time, it could take a year to get through just one piece of writing, but don't give up. Take cues from other writers, and in terms of craft, how they're handling entering a story, or maybe you're writing poetry and you need to go to nonfiction. Experiment, give yourself room. Not everything that you write down has to be what you're going to put into the world, right?
We have a question that just came in for you, Lynda. You said you stopped writing for a couple of months. Was it because of the abuse that they let me word it here. Did the abuser attack your writing skills?
Not specifically. No, it was very much, I think it was post-traumatic stress, that I was dealing a lot with panic attacks. And it was very much that I couldn't process what had happened to me. It was, just not being able to deal with being like physically in my body anymore, because of the assault. Robbed me of my voice, right? Because writing it's a very sensory exercise, right? So if you disconnect yourself from the world in order to protect yourself, you're also disconnecting from that voice that helps you write.
Yeah, because this person says a lot of abusers like to take away things that we enjoy, right? And because you enjoyed writing, was that something that they took away from you, like the time of writing and stuff like that?
Yeah, and they certainly downplayed my talent. There was no encouragement there, but they also found other ways to put me down and make me feel small. Yeah.
And it's amazing what people will do. Like there's so many different forms of abuse that we don't speak about, right? We talk about the beatings and the punching and the words and stuff like that, but there's so much more than that. You know, thanks
Yeah.
for the question for the person who sent it in. I'll keep your name anonymous as you asked. Um, what has been your most transformational moment as a storyteller, and how did it change you?
Hmm. That's a very good one. I'm just going to have a sneak at the table of contents again. You know, honestly, this is going to sound repetitive, but it was miles to inches, because that story I thought I might never write again at that point. I was actually in a writing program. That was the reason I had moved to that city. And I left the program because you can't be in a writing program if you can't write. It wasn't just fiction that I couldn't write, it was my assignments. I couldn't just compute, I guess you would say. I didn't have the focus or the attention span anymore. So the vindicating moment with that came when I entered it in Room's fiction contest. It was the fall of 2012, and I got an honorable mention. And I can really appreciate, looking back on the story, why it didn't win. It wasn't ready. But just that it got that nod, it was like, okay, yes, I feel empowered.
So it's like a cup of tea, right? You didn't steep the tea bag long enough.
Yeah, yeah,
It was like a watered
exactly.
down tea. It wasn't ready. It needed
Yeah,
more steeping. That's all it
yeah,
needed.
yeah,
See, I always go back to tea, but I don't serve a beverage, guys. I serve how we look at a cup of tea, you know, because
yeah,
it's how we serve ourselves. Do we serve ourselves strong enough, or or we just put that tea bag in and out, and then this is what you're gonna get. Like there's no prep, there's no nothing. We're just coming with water, hot water, and that tea bag in there. Then we took the tea bag out right away, right? So my Oma always got me to look at tea in a different way. So and that's why I use tea. We got a couple more questions
absolutely.
here, but then I want to get into a couple of the personal questions that I've asked all of my guests as well. So the next question I have for you is, how do you approach building characters that feel authentic and flawed, yet deeply relatable?
Ah, it's interesting. I know some people will do in-depth character sketches before they even start to write a story. And I am guilty of pantsing my way through everything. So often stories for me will start with a line, and it can often be a line of interiority in a character's head. So I'm just getting their voice, and I will follow that voice wherever it takes me. And that means there's stuff I have to cut out. Often there's things that are just like notes to myself. But in terms of making them deeply flawed, I don't give it a lot of thought until I'm revising if I've made them flawed enough, if I've pushed them far enough. Like for me, what the thing I'm thinking about is, have I given them enough trouble? Because for your story to work, you need adversity, right? So you need stakes. And when I'm worried about those things, I find it goes well. If I'm worried about characters, which are more static, I find there's less electricity in the story, if that makes sense.
It does. I like that. And you said the word pantsing.
Mhm.
Can you tell me what that means? Because I've never heard that word before.
Okay, that's the opposite of outlining. It means
Oh,
flying by the seat of your pants. That's the spin-off from, yeah. So I tried to write a novel when I was 17. And I took the very sound advice that if you're going to write a novel, you should have a chapter by chapter outline. So I did that, and I got 140 pages in, and then I realized I didn't care about the project enough to finish it because I knew how everything was going to turn out. I wasn't invested anymore. My why for writing is to find out what will happen.
see, I learn something new every day with my guests. Like I was just like, what is that word? Like I'm curious. I want to know. And I'm sure all my listeners are like, "Oh, thanks for asking, Miss Liz, because we didn't know either." Uh, We have a couple more questions here, and then I'm going to get into this book over here. Like I mentioned at the beginning of this season, you're going to see a lot of papers flying around because Miss Liz has papers. I have phones. I got this. I got that, and you're going to see that out there. So, for all the viewers that are listening as well and in the studio, Gregory Children's Youth and Organization will also be on Tea Time in the future. We're working on getting them on here and that as well. So thanks for joining us today. They've left a comment, amazing. And Miss Lynda, you inspire and how? I'm not sure what he means by that. I'm sure he'll pop in his little question here, and we'll just keep getting it there. The next one we have is, if readers could take away only one message from your work, what would you want them to take away?
Oh, see, that's a question I get very nervous about, because my ultimate goal for a reader is to come away from the book maybe feeling a little bit seen, right? When you read something that just resonates with you so much. But for me to pick a specific message that resonates with a reader takes away from the fact that each reader brings their own lived experience to a book. And it's how the words I write interact with their experience that decides how they feel about the work and what they're going to take away from it. So there's a bit of chemistry happening there. And I would hate for something I say to change how someone would experience it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Are you scared that some of the readers might be triggered when they're reading your work?
That's something I've been asked about now and didn't think about while I was working. Mostly because I've never felt the need to be protected from literature. It's always been cathartic for me to read, and it helps me understand and intellectualize feelings that I might find very hard to cope with. But that's just me. What I appreciate hearing from people is that, it can be a safety thing, right? To have those trigger warnings, it can just make readers feel more safe engaging with the work or choosing not to engage with the work. In one way, I do feel like the back blurb on the book is a bit of a trigger warning in itself, right? Because we know this woman's meeting her rapist at an engagement party. So we get a sense that we're dealing with some trauma and abuse in there as well.
So is there a trigger warning for people to buy the book?
No, there isn't a trigger warning.
Is that something you would consider putting into the next books that you're writing?
I would consider it. Yeah.
Because as much as we share stories, sometimes it might be the littlest thing that might trigger someone, right? I know for me, it's scents and smells. Yes. Certain colognes or something like that, I freeze up. I can be in Walmart or in a grocery store and I smell a certain scent. I'm like, I got to get out of here. I don't know who that person is, but that just that cologne, right, is I got to get out of here. So but as a writer, I'm like you, I that's my safety net. So when we're writing, we're not in that mind frame of, oh, I got to watch how I write this. Oh, I got to watch how I say this, because that was our safety net, right? That was where we could express ourselves.
Exactly.
And we're both truth speakers, and the truth is, some stories are hard to read. Some stories will trigger you, and if you're an easy person to get triggered, then maybe you should stay away from those books. What's next for your creativity, and how do you envision your stories evolving over the next few years?
So yes, more short stories. I don't see a novel happening. We talked about that a little bit before. Just sustaining a novel without planning is a bit of a tightrope to walk. So right now I am working on stories related to the theme of betrayal. And I'm thinking in terms of, how we betray ourselves. I think we betray ourselves more often than anyone else, how we betray others. And also, I think this is a great moment to be thinking how we're betraying the planet. Yeah.
Yeah. So now, Lynda, I want to take you onto your tea, because we're going to wrap it up with some tea here. I asked all my guests this to give me 3 words and phrases. And Lynda, you gave me beginner, lifelong, and mental health. So do you want to tell us a little bit about those 3 words?
Yes. I think having the beginner attitude is something that's a gift, right? Because it can be easy to get to a point, especially in adulthood, where we've done the same things over and over, and we actually feel quite confident in our abilities. We get locked into a place where we have to be good at what we're doing. And being good at everything you do is not that much fun. So being willing to be a beginner, to start at the beginning again, I think is just essential to living a full life.
Willing to start. I like it, because so many people are scared to start. You just never know where that journey is going to take you if you just take that step to start.
Exactly.
The next one is lifelong.
Lifelong. Ah, yes, learning. I think it's almost tied to the beginner thing. Like, if you're not learning, are you even living? For me, it's just almost like breathing, that if you're not finding out new information and adjusting your course based on that information, are you fully alive? You know, my undergrad at university was such a great time because there was so much information that was coming in, and I had to re-examine all of my beliefs. Everything that I grew up thinking came under question, and that was one of the happiest times of my life. And it was just energizing to have that experience. And I decided it was something I wanted to hold on to, that I didn't want to stop doing that just because I'd reached a certain age.
And the last one is mental health.
Yes. And that's just about sharing, being open about it. Because it is scary to do that. And I think it's also important to do things that scare us. And when I think about the people who shared with me about their mental health, I doubt they realized the impact they had. And that's just one of the things you can't know. So it's important to share regardless of what the impact might be, because that's not yours to know. It's just yours to share.
And we have a question from Gregory here. What inspired you to become a writer?
Oh, so many good books. My mother read to us out loud on the afternoons in summertime. I think when I was 3, she read us Heidi. She read the Nancy Drew books to us when I was 5. And I fell in love with words. So I was writing stories before I could even spell properly.
How old were you when you started writing, Lynda?
In grade 2, I wrote my first story. I co-wrote it with my sister.
Oh, who did that? Grade 2. See, you don't have to be 18 or 30 or 50, or, you can be grade 2. What grade 2 would be, what, 6 or 7?
Yeah, I think I was 7 by the time I wrote it. Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you one question and then we'll wrap up. Give me one moment that made a difference in your life.
Oh. So when I was really depressed when I was 14, I told my mother, or I asked her rather, what do you do when you don't know how to live anymore? And that was a really hard question to ask. And she took me to a doctor. Doctor prescribed an antidepressant. Unfortunately, it didn't react well with me. So instead of seeing improvement, I actually got worse. And I got to a point where I would just curl up in a ball and sob. And during one of these moments, my father was with me, and he told me, you won't always feel this way. And right away I said, I don't think I can believe that. And he said, it's okay, because I believe that for you. And that is my life-changing moment, but also it's a perfect example of how to hold space for someone who is struggling with mental health.
It's to have that encouragement, right? When we don't have the courage for ourselves, somebody else has it for us.
Yeah.
So, Lynda, what final message do you have for everybody, and how can they get your book and all that good stuff?
Okay, so final message. Yeah, share your truth, no matter what it is. And then as far as getting the book goes, it's available in the US at Amazon.com as well as Barnes & Noble. It's on pre-order right now, but it's being released on September 1st, not far away. In Canada, it's available from Amazon.ca and Chapters and Indigo, as well as local independents. And you can find out more about me at www.lindawilliams.ca.
I'll just get you to say it again, Lynda, because we got a little wormhole there that is taking over. So just get the website out there one more time.
Okay, it's www.lindawilliams.ca.
Awesome. And thank you so much for joining me today in the studio and sharing your tea with all of us and your book and all that good stuff. As she said, September 1st is when the book is coming out. So go over, grab yourself a copy. And if you know it's going to resonate with somebody who's going through something or would like a book to encourage them to keep going strong and reading short stories, buy a book for a friend. Pay it forward. Buy a book for a worker or a sibling or a child. If it helps somebody, that's how we do it. We pay it forward by helping one another and by being a voice for each other. So thank you so much, Lynda, for joining me. We will be back tonight at 7 p.m. with Mark Morton, and he'll be talking about his book as well. And we're going to be taking you down some recipes and some hard life and some real hard truth. It's really strong tea at 7 p.m. So be sure to tune in for that. And then we'll be back next week and we'll do it all over again. Tuesday and Thursday, same thing. We're going to be spilling tea until the end of December. And then next year we'll be doing more tea. So that's just how it works. So thank you all for tuning in. Thank you to the listeners on Instagram, on LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, all of those places. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you to Gregory for your questions and support in the studio. And we cannot do this together without you guys. So it's a teamwork effect. So with the TEE, we add an M and we have team spelled in a different way because Miss Liz likes to do it a little different. So thank you all, and I'll see you guys tonight at 7 p.m. with the second tea time of this Thursday.